So one of the most important pieces of research that I think has come out in a while is research that was done by the Chicago Consortium on School Research. And they published a book called Organizing Schools for Improvement, Lessons from Chicago. And what they have found is that school improvement is really a recipe, and there are 5 ingredients to that recipe. The first one and the most important one is school leadership. And that leadership is very, very important, especially since it's the kind of leadership that actually cultivates power in other people in the building. It's not just all residing with the principal. So these are leaders that share power and actually cultivate power among teachers and families. One of the other ingredients is professional capacity, meaning that you have folks in the building, your staff are talented. Doesn't mean they have to know everything, but that they're willing to learn. We also see in this research that they talk about professional instructional guidance, and that is the kind of professional development, good professional development for teachers and staff. They talk about a student-centered learning climate where the curriculum and what folks do in the building is relevant to the students and keeps the students at the center. But one of the other ingredients they identified is parent and community ties, which I call family and community engagement. And what they're saying is that without all 5 of those ingredients present, you won't have school improvement. If you take one of the ingredients out, your school won't improve. And so they've studied schools in Chicago and compared ones that have improved to ones that haven't, and they've seen that these are the 5 ingredients that make the most difference. Now, I had to smile when that research came out, because when I do my presentations, I use an analogy of cakes and recipes. And what I've said over the years is that when you look at a cake and you're looking at the ingredients in the cake, the flour is the one that has the most volume. So we're using maybe 2 or 3 cups of flour to a cake recipe. And I really look at that as, our staff, because when you look at any school budget, the resources for personnel is usually, the highest proportion of the resources in terms of what we spend our funding on. But when you look at a cake recipe, there's also a main ingredient that if you leave it out, you have failure in terms of the cake, and that's the baking powder. And think about it, you only use, what, half a teaspoon of baking powder? But without it, the cake doesn't rise, it's gooey, it's not very good. I've done it, I know. So I say to people when I do professional development trainings is that, your family engagement is really the baking powder of your student achievement. It seems like a small thing, it's very easily overlooked, but boy, it makes a huge difference if you don't have it. And so without the baking powder in any recipe, the cake is not going to rise. And I think similarly, if you don't have your family engagement in your recipe of student improvement, your students are never going to rise. Your schools are never going to rise to the levels that we want them to. So your family engagement is essential to seeing our children hit the mark and seeing our schools improve.